All right. Thanks for making the journey.
Yes.
How long of a drive was it?
4.5 blocks.
4.5 blocks.
4.5 blocks.
You started saying 4.5, and I'm thinking of time.
Yeah.
Then you say blocks.
So yeah, we're
As
just,
the crow
just down the street.
flies.
Yeah, just down the street from you. So
Yeah. Well, appreciate you coming by. This will be fun.
yeah, happy to be here.
All right, guys. I'm Sam McVeigh, host of the Killer Growth Podcast, and today I have Syndee Scribner, owner of a lot of things: Scribner Enterprise, Scribner Property Management,
Yes.
and maybe other things I don't know about. But we're gonna
Those are the main ones
the
right
main
now.
ones. Yeah. So happy to have you here.
Yeah.
And you've listened to an episode,
I've listened to a couple episodes. Yes.
so you know the format. So you know the
Yes.
first question coming.
Yes.
Which is a nice soft serve. So give me Syndee's story from right out of high school to what brought you here today.
Sure. And I actually was excited to be able to tell you this because
Good.
I know that you have a theme of guest on here. And while I did not play Butler baseball, I did play Butler softball.
Oh, there you go.
So
No, it's
I
perfect.
I was happy to
That's
be
funny.
a part
Yeah.
of the theme.
I think we've had like 3 guests. So you're the 4th
Yes.
Butler ball player.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So after high school, obviously I went to Butler, played softball, had a vision of what my life was going to be like, got pregnant, and that changed the vision, right? Which, like most things in life, they happen for a reason, but that was a kind of a left turn that I wasn't expecting. That probably kept me in El Dorado for a while, forever at this point, but hadn't necessarily planned on that in my life. So went to Butler, played softball for 2 years. Then I worked at Butler for maybe another 8 years at their foundation. Left there in 13. Became a police officer.
What is that? Sorry. What does that mean? You worked for the college's foundation?
Yes. So the Butler Foundation is kind of the nonprofit or the fundraising arm of the college. And so we would raise money for scholarships. We were the kind of the capital arm for the Welcome Center, for the stadium, things of that nature. So worked with a lot of great people, met a lot of great people that had been successful and was able to kind of learn from them, which was a lot of fun. In 13, I left the college. I became a police officer.
That's a big change.
Yes, for the city of El Dorado.
Yeah. What was that pivot like? Like, what was the like? Just always, was it always in you to want to be an officer?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yep. So I'd always wanted to be a police officer. Got that opportunity. Did that for about 7 years. In 2020, I left that and got a job at Koch Industries, a subsidiary of Koch called Flint Hills Resources. Worked there for about 18 months. Realized that corporate America was not my thing. In the meantime, I had met Wendy. We had started planning our life together, got married, started Scribner Enterprises. She had quit the YMCA. She was working at the YMCA. She had quit there a couple months before. That seemed like way more fun than what I was doing, right? And so we made the decision that we would both quit and tackle Scribner Enterprises full time, and still going today.
That's awesome. So let's go into what was the beginning of Scribner Enterprises. So you were doing it first.
No,
Is that where
so there was no Scribner Enterprises until 2020.
You and Wendy did it together.
Correct.
Okay. Cool.
So in early 2020, that was when Wendy and I got together. And for those that remember, in 2020, you got stuck inside, right? So we are stuck inside. We're both working from home. We've recently gotten together and are planning our life. We decided that one thing that we wanted to do was invest in real estate, right? Like looking at how we wanted to plan our life out. So our plan was to just do we're going to buy a few rentals, have some passive income, right off into the sunset, right? Which everyone that buys rentals thinks that that's what's happened.
Right. Yeah. Money made overnight.
Yes. Right. So that is how we kind of started Scribner Enterprises, right? So we
buying property.
Yep. So she had a couple of rentals when we got together.
Okay.
You know, she moves in with me, turn her house into a rental. You know, you kind of organically, by luck, we had 4 or 5 pretty quick, right? We bought one together. We are doing everything, right? Saturday mornings, we're painting, we're laying flooring, we're cleaning stuff out, whatever. The power of social media, right? You post this stuff, you tell people, hey, if you know someone that wants to sell their house, like call us. And people called, oddly enough, right? Good or bad. And so it just kind of grew organically to where it was starting to take up a lot of our time. We had the
And you're just posting on Facebook? Were you putting out yard signs? How did people know to call you if they wanted to sell their house?
At this point, I think we're just posting on Facebook.
Okay.
We'd maybe written some letters to people, like realtors, things like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't super crazy.
Yeah.
We are doing all the work ourselves. Then we get an opportunity to start managing some doors for some other people. And we're like, well, we're already managing our own. Like, this seems like a natural fit. Wendy had done property management in the past. So we're like, well, let's do that, right? Like, this is a way to grow. And I think that's what ultimately drove Wendy, or gave Wendy the ability to quit, was that we had done that. That was taking up a lot more of her time. And so that was kind of the first push. And then as I quit, then you have to just hustle more, right? You have to do more deals. You have to, there's no safety net at that point, and so then it was more the signs, increase social media, send more letters, do more marketing, which then leads to employees, all the things.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's an interesting start because that's such a long game. It would be, in my mind, when I hear that, I think, well, that's hard to think about cash flowing yourselves in a quick enough matter. What was the way? Because buying a rental, you have to have a lot of rentals to obviously replace income.
Yes.
Flipping properties, I'm assuming, is some, I don't know what the cash flow turnaround would be on that. But you were doing both, right? You're flipping property and then you do the rental side.
Yes.
So like when you quit your job, what was the cash? You don't have to share like everything, but I'm curious.
Yeah. So then it became, now we have to flip more, right? We can't hold, can't hold as many rentals because we've got to, keep the lights on.
Right.
It was trying to increase the property management, which didn't work great at first. And we actually ended up dropping that client. We didn't do any property management for a couple years. We kind of got a bad taste in our mouth. So then it was just flipping. And as we got employees, we started doing some work for just people in their house. We don't do a lot of that because the houses keep us busy.
Like
but
handyman or carpentry.
Yes. Okay. So then it was, every 2 or 3 houses you have to flip to keep the lights on. And,
got it.
So then you become a little more strategic in your approach.
Yeah. So it's hold by based on a lot of factors, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably certain properties which I'm suck at property. That's one area that I genuinely do not understand.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I was excited about on this episode is just understanding your mindset, you and Wendy, when you look at a property, how you think about it.
Sure.
Right. And then how you're thinking far enough ahead about that property. And because you got to buy it right. You've got to know what you're doing to get it fixed up for whatever the end result is.
Right.
And that stresses me out, the thought of that, because I can't get my own house finished, 7 years later.
Well, you never work on your own stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you have to factor in, you're really looking at 2 different cash return strategies, right? So you have the rentals, which are the long game, right? You hope they make a little money every month, but, that's going to be a 10, 15, 20 year, really a good return there, right? Where you have to flip something, right, to get that cash quicker, the cash injection quicker. And now you're focused more on staying in budget. Is the market going to hold strong enough? How long is it going to take to be on the market, right? In 21, 22, you'd put something on the market and in 5 or 6 days you'd be under contract, right? Well, that's a lot different approach than now, right? You're 30, 40 days on market.
Yeah.
The buyers have changed in what they expect. We've switched from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And so all those things factor into how you have to approach.
Yeah. When you look at a property, because you're only going to make a certain return on investment in a certain time period, what is like I don't know. Do you have a formula? Is it a gut thing? When you decide beyond even just the cash flow side, even if you're not in a spot where, oh, I should flip this because we have this other opportunity, because I'm sure that's part of it too, where if you flip a couple properties, you can get into something else.
Sure.
But yeah, is there some metric you look at where if you're going to make a certain amount, you're not even going to consider rental, you're just flipping every time?
Sure. So there's a lot of things that play into that. So my biggest problem is I like a deal. If I think I can buy a deal, I just want to buy a deal and then I'll figure out what we want to do with it,
after.
right?
Yeah.
But anytime for us, and there's a lot of different ways that investors analyze deals, right? So we kind of have the way we do it. We have the goals that meet, that we want to meet for it to be a deal for us, if that makes sense. But that's by no means how every investor invests. So for us, we want to buy a deal and then figure out what we're going to do with it. So are we in a position where we can hold it for a rental, or do we need the cash and so we have to flip it? But at the same time, if we plan on flipping it, what happens if we can't, right? Then are we able to turn it into a cash flowing rental? So you always have to have multiple exits, or we try to analyze it so that we have multiple exits should things not go as planned, which happens a lot of the times.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and especially with the bigger effect of the market. I mean, the market's changing outcomes for you all the time.
Yes.
Right. Or exits probably. So talk about the difference between you're doing this, the seller market versus the buyer market. How's that? I mean, and that's a pretty tight window. We're talking like it lasts 18 months. What do you think when that transition happened?
Yeah, I'd say within the last year for sure, maybe 18 months, So back in 2022, when people could buy a house at 3.5%, they just wanted to get into something, right? Everybody was trying to buy. And so buyers would have to give maybe concessions that they wouldn't want to try to get this house because there's 5 or 6 offers. I mean, I know the first house Wendy and I bought together, it went on the market. We looked at it same day and we were like the 6th showing just that day. I mean, it was crazy. And so
in that market, is that kind of flip?
Oh, that's
flip.
That's awesome.
That's not hold. That's sell.
That is sale, right? Because on the flip side, people know that houses are worth more, I guess, right? And so people that are selling to investors are expecting more money, right? Because they're
sense.
Like, the housing market is super hot, so you can't necessarily get deals that make sense to hold at that point.
Yeah.
Right. But then as the market changes, now there's less buyers. And so there's less people looking at your house and they have more houses to choose from. And so if they want your house, they're going to expect certain things. So you got to wait 30 days to get a contract. And then the buyer maybe will want more concessions than they would in a different market.
Yep. So now talk about this market. What's that look like right now?
Well, I think it's getting better. Seems to be. There seems to be more showings. There seems to be more offers coming in. We've got a couple houses on the market right now. They are getting showings. They're not getting offers right now. But I think as, we've started to see some interest rates come down. There's a decent amount of inventory. I think we're starting to change to where it's going to be a little more seller friendly, but because there's more buyers, I don't think it's going to be where people will just write blank checks to buy a house. Sure. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that have been wanting to buy that haven't been able to, that interest rates in the economy are going to allow them to buy.
Yeah,
which is good. That's good for everybody.
So is that kind of like a neutral? Is there a neutral, like a buyer market, seller market, and then kind of a win-win? Is there such a thing? Is it always one-sided?
I don't know if I've been doing it long enough to know the super big, the super big trends. I hope that every time somebody buys a house, it's a win-win for the buyer and the seller. I certainly wouldn't want somebody to buy a house from me and feel like because it was a seller's market, I somehow cut corners or screwed them over because I knew I could, So you hope anytime there's a transaction, it's everybody walks away happy. You come to terms where everybody's happy.
Yeah. So getting into this business, barrier to entry is not nothing. You've got to be able to get financing, put money down. Talk about that process starting out. Like that would be a tough, in my mind, just a tough thing to get into. And
Yes. So Scribner Enterprises was blessed that one of their partners had a history of real estate.
gotcha.
That partner was not me.
Gotcha.
Right. So my wife had invested on and off
Yeah.
her whole life. Her family had invested. She brought and continues to bring the knowledge to the business. So she understood kind of the nuances of financing rentals, some things like that.
Yeah.
So when we started off buying, we kind of bought traditionally, right? We would go to the bank. We would ask, here's 20% down, all the
Yep.
things.
Yep.
And that's how I think how a lot of people get started, right? That is not sustainable if you're going to invest full time, right? It's just hard to keep that much cash on hand to always be able to put 20% down. So we have entered into where we predominantly buy with private money.
Cool.
So we've got some private investors that when we have a deal, they act as the bank and we borrow their private money. We are able to complete the deal with no money out of our pocket, right? We're fortunate enough to have terms with them that we don't have to bring any money out of our pocket.
Yeah.
We complete the deal, and then if we sell it, they get, much like a bank, they would get their mortgage repaid, or if we keep it, we would essentially refinance it with a new bank, and they would get their money back with, the payment of terms agreed upon.
That makes sense. And that allows you to move a lot quicker because banks are slow, regardless of even having 20%.
Yes.
Having a private partner like that. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Do they work, do you work in that way traditionally on this is the going rate? Do you do a profit share on flips? Like you don't have to say numbers, but just
So we've done one profit share with a guy that kind of wanted to get into the business. But traditionally, it's just a flat rate interest paid based on the amount of time that we hold their money.
Gotcha. So yeah, the quicker you flip, the more you make. The longer it takes you to flip, the more they make. So
yes,
it kind of evens out either way.
Yes.
That's cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting. Yeah, that's the part about property that on the rental side too, talk about that. And that's going to be our transition into management.
Sure.
What's the worst part about owning a rental? And from the outside in, being in service companies, we take care of a lot of rentals and they spend a lot of money on service companies.
Yes.
And I'm always like, this feels like a nightmare. But it doesn't have to be. If you buy right, you get the right tenant. But talk about the headache of that and the pros and cons of residential rentals specifically.
Sure. The pros are probably just from a personal wealth side, right? I mean, I'm not going to make a ton of money every year, especially for a lot of years. But there are a lot of benefits that come with owning real estate, right? And you can read about those. I certainly cannot speak to all of those outside of the basic knowledge that I have. What I have learned with rentals is be picky on your tenants and set the standard early. If you can do that, most of the time you'll get along okay.
Sure.
We have a criteria that you have to meet to rent from us. If you don't meet that, we're not going to be your landlord. Not because we don't want to try to help people, but we don't want to set people up for failure, right? Sure. And so if I put you in a house that you can't afford, evicting you is not going to solve your problem, right? Because now you've got an eviction on your record or whatever, right? So we don't want to set people up to fail because I want people, when someone moves into my rental, I want them to be there for a long time, right? I want it to be a good partnership for all of us. So we make sure that they can afford the house that they want to live in. And then we set the standard of what we expect early. And if they can't do that, right, or they don't communicate what they need so that we can help them, then we try to take care of those situations sooner rather than later. We also try to stay on top of them, right? We want to make sure that they're taking care of our asset, that we're allowing them to rent.
Accountability there on the property. Yeah.
You can't micromanage how people live.
Right.
But I can encourage them to not have trash on their front porch. Right.
Right.
And so we try to say what the standard is.
Because a good tenant, I've been a tenant multiple times over the years, commercially and residentially. And I would say I appreciated some properties I was in. I didn't appreciate them. So I'm assuming also a good tenant can also maybe even keep a property at its value or worth more, right? Because I remember having an apartment, I put all new carpet in it because I just wanted it and they wouldn't do anything about it, right?
Sure.
Or I had a commercial space and I wanted to make this space better. And so I had to pay for it. The landlord wasn't going to pay for it. And I stopped renting there one day and moved the business out, and those floors were better. Like the building went up. So that makes sense. Like if you can get a tenant that's got a positive return, even just on the property itself.
Well, and I think I wish one thing, if I could give tenants one piece of advice, it would be, tell me when an issue first starts, right? Like I want to fix the faucet when it starts dripping, not when the water lines break and it's flooded everything, or like, let me know when you first start to have an issue.
Makes
and
sense.
that's part of what we encourage them to do. Like if you have an issue, we would rather you call us up front than when it becomes a bigger issue, because then that's more expensive for us. Where we can just come in and we can knock it out. Now you can have a better product or, a better place to live, and we've saved a little money.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So talk about the property management side. Why did you decide to get into that? Feels like an easy transition. You own rentals, and then not easy transition. It's the wrong word, but you have your own rentals. And then how did that part start? You quitted it. You quit. Wow. Words are hard. You got into it. You stopped it.
Yes.
And then why did you restart it?
Sure. So we were into it. We had a landlord. He was an out-of-town landlord. He had several rentals. We found that the product that he wanted to put out there and the product that we wanted to have our name to didn't align. Right. Okay. So we ultimately got out of that. And that put a bad taste in our mouth for property management. Part of why Scribner Enterprises was started was to improve housing in El Dorado. With Wendy and I both being from here, having a good town to live in is important to us. And so when we didn't feel like our name was being put on a product that we felt was to a level of acceptability for us, it was time to discontinue that partnership. And so we got out of it for a while, and to us, it just made sense to get back into it and just be pickier with the clients that we served. That was a learning lesson. And so, hey, we still think that there's a market for this. We just need to make sure that we're more strategic with the people that we bring on board. One of those learning lessons. I think real estate is one of those businesses that people understand why you should be in it, right? And so people get into real estate, but then they don't want the calls on the weekends, right? Or they don't want to be the bad guy and tell this person that, yeah, you do owe me rent, or this isn't working. It's time for you to go. Right? Because they want to do it for the passive income. And so we felt like there was a market there to tell these folks, you want the benefits of real estate, but you don't want the headache. So let us take that headache, and then we can send you what we call mailbox money every month that just, it shows up, right? And when there's issues, we get to deal with them. And when they come to a certain level, we rope you in and you help us make decisions based on your goals or how you want your asset treated. But other than that, we chase down the late rent. We call the plumber when it's needed. We can handle those things that you don't want to deal with because at the end of the day, you just want the money.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, at the end of the day, it was an investment, not a passion to manage property.
Yeah, and it's hard when a lot of times people just have 2 or 3 rentals and you get to know your tenants, right? And it's hard to go on their doorstep and say, this isn't working, and so they can hire us to manage some of those headaches.
Yeah. So talk about that, because you're getting paid to manage headaches.
Yes.
Sounds like a blast. Sounds super fun. It's probably really, low stress.
So, having been a cop for 7 years,
right. Well, that's fair.
Helps with that.
Yeah. So you're in charge of collections, I'm assuming.
I am in charge of knocking down the door when nobody else wants to. But I think it goes back to when you first put them in a house, you set the standard. And as long as you hold that standard, it's not a surprise to anybody what's going to happen. Now, I will say that I feel like our company does a very good job of working with people because life is hard sometimes, right? And especially now. But they have to communicate and hold up their end of the deal. I don't want to make it a habit of kicking people out of their houses because that's not a good solution either. But there has to be a middle ground that we all agree on, and everybody has to keep up their end of the deal. And sometimes people do, and sometimes they don't. But we set the standard, and if you don't do this, the consequence is this, and then you have to follow through with that.
That makes sense. So explain your structure at the property management company. I'm thinking through, you have someone who does sales, probably talks to the property owner. Yes. Then you've got someone that's communicating to the tenants. Then do you have people that are like boots on the ground that also help for the things you don't need a professional for? Do you have maintenance people or people that are available for a dripping sink?
Sure.
Isn't necessarily deserving of a plumber.
So we have a property manager, and she, makes sure that rents get collected. If there's maintenance issues, she manages those, right? Do we need to send our handyman out, or do we need to call the electrician? She deals with those. She makes sure that when a property becomes vacant or becomes on the market, it's ready to be rented out. She meets potential tenants. She screens our tenants. She gets leases signed. Gotcha. She handles all of those day-to-day activities, and then also communicates with owners if we have something that we need to wrap them in. Yeah,
if it's a big enough line item for repair or a tenant issue. Yeah, that makes sense. How do you again, I've not rented in forever, and I'd never had a background check. Is that common now, background checks for tenants?
I would say it's common for more corporate type landlords.
Okay.
I don't know that you're a person that's just managing one or two. Some of them do, but you tend to see it more with a property management company or a corporate type structure.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. What's the biggest headache right now for the property management side, as far as like systems and processes that you guys are figuring out how to, in more just in the industry, not like you guys have a problem, but more in the industry, what are you hoping to improve and make better?
I think, so I was talking to a guy the other day, and I don't know if this is a issue or just something that's coming down, that he invested across the country. And he said that all of his maintenance requests are all done through AI, which I thought was interesting. And so it comes into him. He actually never sees it. It just goes straight to the plumber or straight to whoever, and they take care of all of it. And so he really doesn't have a property manager. So I thought that was an interesting way that maybe the industry was going.
Automating dispatch, essentially.
Yes. I think the hardest thing most property managers would tell you, we're blessed not to have this issue, but I think getting like professional subcontractors out is maybe the biggest headache that I see, or tenants that leave places trashed.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix that, but
Yeah, getting subcontractors, so getting the plumber, electrician out there at an appropriate time,
yes,
right? Because you probably need to have a deal with them. Like, if this happens, we want to be first on your list. We'll refer you a lot of work,
sure,
right? So there's probably some give
and
on
we're
both
blessed
sides.
with very good relationships with our subcontractors, so that's not necessarily an issue that we have. But seeing what other property managers struggle with, I think maybe that's which if you're managing 70 doors in Wichita, that I could see where that could be difficult if you don't have those services
Right.
in-house.
Yeah, for sure. When does it make sense to hire a property manager? Management company. I buy 3 rentals. I buy 1, 2, 3. At what number does it make sense, or can it make sense owning one residential property?
I think it can make sense owning one,
Okay.
right? Because inevitably something's going to happen on a Saturday. Something's going to happen when you're on vacation. Are you here, or do you invest in the town that you live in, or are you somewhere else, but that this is a good rental market, and so you're an out of state or an out of town investor, but part of it too is, what are your goals? Did you buy it at a price that allows you to pay me to manage it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I think if your goal is just, I want to check every month, I think you need to at least have the conversation, and learn what value a property management company could potentially bring you if you choose them.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more that goes into a rental than just, I'm going to put a tenant in there and then hopefully every month I get a check.
How geographically limited are you from a property management company perspective? Can you manage property anywhere to a certain distance?
Could we? Yes. Do we choose to? No.
Sure.
So we market predominantly to Butler County. We like Butler County. We like Eastern Butler County and Eastern Greenwood County.
Oh, okay.
Is what?
Yeah.
That's the area that we
So about
that we
a
like.
30 mile radius
Yes.
is where you try and stay. I guess it'd be about a 30 mile, right?
Sure.
The east side.
And part of it depends on, how many doors, am I going to drive 30 minutes for one door?
Right. Yeah. That makes sense for multiple appointments or
Sure.
maintenance calls. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, especially if you have stuff internal on the handyman side or whatever you call it, the maintenance side. That'd be tough.
Sure. Yeah, like Eureka, for example, we've got a few rentals over there, and I'm kind of pushing, well, let's buy more because it's easier to drive over there for 10 than for 3, right?
Yeah.
I got to go just as many miles.
Yeah.
So let's make it worth our time to drive over there.
That makes sense. So you guys obviously manage your own property. When did you start focusing on the property management side?
We probably restarted property managing a year, maybe 18 months ago.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity again present itself. It was a much better quality of product, of standard, and so that kind of revitalized that arm, and now we're doing a pretty big push to try to increase that part of our business.
How do you throttle both pieces forward from the acquiring property investment side to the property management side? Are they both complementing each other along the way?
In some ways, right? Because we buy houses that become rentals.
Right.
And so Wendy and I kind of split those duties internally. I handle more of the we buy houses or investment side. She handles more of the property management side.
Okay.
But there are times... One thing that's great is I don't always know a lot about what's going on with property management,
Sure.
which from an owner perspective is awesome because it's running. There's not problems I'm dealing with. And so we might go look at a house And because I'm not as in tune over here, hey, if we were to fix this up, what could it rent for now? Or are we seeing a demand for this type? We think it would be a good rental.
Yeah.
So they do work hand in hand, but internally we kind of split those duties to push them forward.
Makes sense. Okay. So yeah, fast forward to your, not fast forward, I guess we'd have to go back. How long have you been a city commissioner? I'm going to ask you about this.
Ooh, 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So I guess go backwards 2 years. I was thinking it was like a year, but I get the terms all screwed up. I think this is an important question because I think being a local business owner and being involved in city politics is something that's always scared me personally, that I was, always think that'd be tough. Why'd you go for city commissioner, and how is being a city commissioner and also running a business in the same town?
Why did I run for city commission? I ran for city commission because I am kind of a believer that it's easy to gripe about things. It's harder to jump in the water and try to deal with it, right? And so I saw some things that I thought, or maybe not thought, didn't understand. I think that's probably a better term of why it was how it was. And I thought the best way to learn about that was to join the commission. Looking at the demographics of our commission, at the time there weren't any small business owners. That's not true. Commissioner Wilkinson was on there. She does own a small business, but her background is in education, right?
Right.
There wasn't a lot of youth. Not that I'm as youthful as I think I am sometimes. And there weren't any small business owners that did it full time. There were some people that owned some side businesses. And so I thought I could bring a perspective that was a little bit different or that wasn't currently on the commission. And there were things that I didn't understand. Why is this not happening in El Dorado when the environment seems right for it to be happening?
Sure.
And I thought the best way to learn about that was to jump in and serve and try to bring ideas. And so that is kind of why I chose to run. And what was the second half of that question?
Oh, just curious what that balance has been like. I'm just talking from a perspective of like, I feel like that'd be tough. You have to take a side, and you're gonna have people hate you, and your business isn't probably really affected by, the majority of people. Like if you had a restaurant or you had something that's more customer facing every day.
Sure,
I could see affecting taking a position, but has it any effect on the business side or complications?
I don't think it's. I don't know of any place that it has an effect, right? You can spend as much time as you want to on social media, right? With housing being a big issue in El Dorado, you get some comments, right, of all of the things, right? But it's just, I think I fall back on, I feel like I'm a person of integrity, and the decisions that I make are for the city at large and not just for my business. But, my hope would be that any decision that the city makes would be helpful to anyone that's in the housing industry, right? Which in turn is going to help the city. So
that's a good way to put it, because I don't think there's anything wrong with you having an agenda to support economic growth via real estate for anybody, a capitalistic opportunity,
right,
to boost housing, make housing better here. And that was your conviction. That was your conviction before you ran. So it stays in alignment.
Sure.
But that's a good perspective. It should benefit anybody that's in housing.
Sure.
And there's more than you guys in housing.
Yeah. And I think if it was the verse, if there was something nefarious going on, the vote would be different so that I could take advantage of it off market. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there have been times that I've had to excuse myself because I had an interest in a decision, right? And I think just making those things known to the public at the time of vote or whatever the case is, that, hey, I will not be a part of this for these reasons.
So when that's what I was going to ask. How specific are you when you have to abstain from voting?
So there's only been one time.
Okay.
And when the vote came, the way I handled it is I just told the mayor that I would be abstaining because this was a property that I owned, that it was a rezoning situation, but hey, this is a property that I own, so I won't be voting on it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's where everybody can probably visually see your integrity.
Sure.
Is when you actually,
and as a commissioner, you have to fill out annually like disclosure statements, right? That say what businesses do you have an interest in and what percentage do you have an interest in. And so that's all available to the public.
Interesting.
So that the city knows where there may be a conflict of interest and can say, you can't participate in this, or you can say,
in case you're not forthcoming,
correct.
they can have okay. And that's public to everybody in town.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe we fill those out annually.
Okay. Interesting. Are you going to keep doing it?
Right now, yeah. I have really enjoyed it. I think it's like anything else. You jump in and you have an idea. You have all these grand ideas of, why isn't this happening? Why isn't this happening? Why do we do things this way? And then you get in and you learn something and you're like, man, I'm kind of an idiot,
Sure.
right? And so then you learn lots of different things and your perspective changes. And then maybe you understand more, or you can say, I think this is an opportunity. Like, we need to push harder on this.
You can learn and be an advocate and push an agenda that you think is best, even while learning.
Sure.
Which you've got a great posture. I've watched a lot of meetings. You do a great job. You're a great communicator, obviously. And I think your focus is really, it's obvious that you want El Dorado to be better. And that's what we need more of, because you're not getting paid anything. And so I really appreciate anybody that sits on that seat that's going to take a lot of flack, right? Like, you're going to hear bad stuff. People are going to have agendas. You got some crazies out there that are going to try and stir trouble wherever they can. But from my perspective, I also know a lot of people that are very thankful for anybody willing to take that spot. Because it's tough. There's not a lot of gain unless you have a passion for El Dorado and a conviction.
For sure.
It's like a nonprofit in a sense. I mean, it's your way of giving back to the city, and it's a lot of time without a lot of praise, and balancing that while being self-employed and building an enterprise is not a small task.
Yeah, it can be a lot at times, just a lot of meetings, a lot of evenings away from home. And I think, unfortunately, that's a barrier for maybe younger people to be able to serve on the commission. Yeah. I think I'm blessed that I'm at a point in my life where I'm maybe a little bit younger, but have or can carve out the time. I'm not trying to get to my kids' games and, and it's hard to ask somebody to give up that much, like we meet on Mondays. Well, if you're in middle school, I think middle school games are on Monday. So are you going to give up missing half of your kids' stuff for, the little bit that we make, the headache, and I understand why people don't think it's worth it. I'm not going to judge anyone for that.
Yeah. And I think people that don't think it's worth it I'm the person that says, I can't, I just genuinely couldn't do it. I don't have the time. Does that mean I'll never do it? No. It just means like, this is not the time and season of life for me with 4 kids, 12 and under, to be doing anything extra beyond what I'm doing. But I do think a lot of people that don't think it's worth it still appreciate it. And I think we should be, including myself, more supportive in ways that we're maybe not even aware of how we could be supportive of the commission and everything they're doing. And how could the community how could I be better for the city of El Dorado that is run by a city manager, city engineer, and 5 commissioners?
Sure.
What do you guys need from the community to help the community move forward?
I think the biggest thing that I see is I wish people would reach out to the commissioners more.
Okay.
Good, bad, or ugly. I will respond to any email that I get, whether I agree with your stance, whether I don't. If you reach out to me, I will respond to you. I think that's only appropriate as an elected official. But I want to hear from people, right? I want to hear opportunities that they think that we are missing. I want to hear what they think about something. We have since I have been on the commission, we've had a couple, what I would call like hot topics. We've had the homeless shelter downtown, the vote to approve that rezoning. We just had the stopgap loan for the Masonic building. That was pretty big. And I had a few people reach out to me on the homeless, on both sides and why they thought we should or shouldn't do it. But I didn't have anybody reach out to me. And so then you get online and you see all these comments, and I wish people would understand that social media does not hold the weight that they think or they want it to for this commissioner. I don't speak for the commission.
Sure.
I need to make sure I disclose that. But if you have concerns on what the city is doing or is proposing to do,
reach out to your
we
elected
want
officials.
to hear from you so that we get a better understanding of what people are thinking and what they're wanting.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, we'll jump off that. Thanks for talking about that. So talk about, I'm curious as we get towards the end of our hour, how do you and Wendy balance it? How do you and your wife, you've get together and then you also start building business. I know a lot of people that have done business with spouses and have heard how hard it can be. But yeah, how do you and your wife balance, your relationship outside of work?
Sure.
Every day.
The most important thing is Wendy and I both have consciously and have both said our marriage is more important than our business, right? So if we have both said if we ever get at a point where we can't balance both at a level that we think is appropriate, Scribner Enterprises goes. So I think that's the most important thing, or what has worked best for us, is we have put that at the front of everything that we do. Secondly, we know how each other works and we respect that. I want to work all the time. My feet hit the floor. I'm thinking, I'm working, I'm ready to go. I want to be as involved as I can through the commission, through anything, right? Like I want to work. I want to learn things. I want to go all the time. My wife is not like that, right? She wants to show up. She wants to work hard for the hours that she's at the office, but she doesn't want to work in the evening. She doesn't want to work on the weekends. So I don't expect her to. And she doesn't say, I need you home all the time, right? Yeah. When it's Saturday and I'm going stir crazy and I've got to go do something.
Sure.
She's just as happy to walk, I'm driving her crazy at home. And so we know how each other works. We know the part of the businesses that we're most effective in running. And so we let everybody stay in their lane. Yeah. And I think that's how we make it work.
Yeah, good for you guys. That's probably a big part of it. It's just the communication and making sure you're still on the same page about, I'm this person, you're that person, and
yes,
there's probably give and take. But as a person who's never done anything with their spouse and have done business, I've never done anything with my wife, didn't want to. She would say the exact same thing, that she wouldn't want to either.
Sure.
But we also just kind of don't think we would do it well together, especially at the beginning with kids and everything.
Yeah.
And recently we started talking about it again because of a couple concepts, and it still scares me because I've always had that safe haven to go home to where I don't have to talk about it all.
Yeah.
And I don't have to take it home. And so I'm fascinated by couples and spouses that have figured out how to do that. And I've seen it. The one couple that always blew me away was the Hendricks, Ron Hendricks, and man, I can't think of his wife's name right now. It's terrible. Karen. Doesn't matter. Woodworking, cabinetry people. They put cabinets in our house, and I was just shocked. They're both carrying these cabinets in, just getting along great, just like doing business, doing the job. They were just like didn't even have to communicate. They knew what the other hand was doing.
Sure.
What she was doing. He knew what to do next, and I just thought that was cool. And Haley and I looked at each other, especially the idea of installing a cabinet. We can't install a microwave together without freaking out.
Yeah.
So we're always just like, we see that. We're like, I don't know how people do it.
And I think it's the season of life too, right?
Yep.
Again, when we got together, we were a little bit older, very in tune with maybe who we were. While we had a 16-year-old at the time, right? That's a lot different than having 5 kids under 12. Right. So, I think recognizing too the season of life in which we're tackling this, I think makes a big difference too.
That's a good point. Haley has 5 kids that act like they're 12 and under. We have 4 kids, but I'm the 5th kid is what we've determined. And my daughters remind me regularly that their mom has 5 kids and I'm one of them. That's really good. Okay. Well, let's talk about your advice in the real estate side. I think would be cool. Specifically, if somebody's wanting to get into real estate, it's a good idea, but what's your advice for someone wanting to buy their first rental today, like in this market?
Sure. I would say 2 things. One is find a mentor, right? Find someone that's willing to kind of teach you how they do things. There's a lot of different ways to invest in real estate, to analyze deals, but I think find someone and learn from them to get started and then evolve from there. And the second thing I would say is just do it, right? I think most business owners that are successful make decisions really fast, whether they are right or wrong. They make decisions and they figure it out. And that's the only way you're going to learn, because you can analyze deals. You can look, what if this goes wrong? What if, I had someone the other day, had shown them a house and I followed up and I'm like, are you interested in buying it? And they're like, well, I'm still pricing interior doors, and that's fine, but I think
you can analyze
you
it
got
to
it.
death.
You're never going to get
100%
of the information that's going to work 100% of the time. So when we make decisions, we try to get 85 or 90% of the way there to make the decision. And then we figure out the other 10% because then at least we're moving. And
makes sense.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you've got to make quick decisions, and you're going to beat the people that are analyzing and that aren't making the decision.
That's
right. If you're racing out of the parking lot and your car's in drive and the other guy's in park trying to put on his seatbelt because he wants to be super safe, well, you're going to be out of the parking lot before they are.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can put your seatbelt on as you're driving through the parking lot.
Agreed. And I always put my seatbelt on.
As a former police officer, I appreciate that.
That's what I was waiting for. I love that, actually. That's a good point, especially in real estate. I mean, when a deal's a deal, it's a deal.
Yeah.
And first come, first serve, right?
And guess what? You're going to screw up.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many deals you do, right? You are going to miss something. You are going to screw up. The market's going to change in the middle of what you're doing.
Right.
But that's where you learn.
Yeah.
You're going to do 2 or 3 deals and you're going to win and you're going to be like, man, this is the best thing ever. And then you're going to lose on a couple, but you have to just do.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you so much.
Yes,
You're
thank
awesome.
you.
People can go follow you guys, Scribner Enterprise, Scribner Property Management on the socials.
Yes.
Connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yes.
On anything real estate related. Where are you willing to mentor someone if they see this podcast and want to connect with you?
I'd love to.
Okay.
So I always, I always tell people when they're like, man, I don't know how to do this. Let me teach you how,
Okay.
right? There's plenty of real estate in the world. There's plenty of deals. If you're interested, I would love to visit with people and at least tell them how we do things.
Yeah, connect with Syndee on LinkedIn would probably be a great place for professional to connect, and go follow their socials. And thank you again for the time. I learned a lot. I think you gave me a little more courage. I'm scared of buying property.
Yeah. Why?
I get freaked out. I like buying commercial property that I have a business in, but outside of that, it's always just freaked me out because of the being on the other side of fixing them all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I know it works, and I regret not doing it though.
Yeah.
Because I'm in that position. What you just described is where I've been for a long time, where I go, I overanalyze it, and I'm like, it's probably nothing's good there. But
I think, one thing that I would tell people that, especially the rentals, right? They're worried about the maintenance and things like that. There are ways to buy them where you can fix all those things up in the financing, and then when you refinance it, right now you've got an air conditioner that's brand new that
did 10
in
years
theory,
of maintenance
right? Yeah.
at once. That's a good point.
And so
that's a good way to look at it.
you buy it and you factor that into how you purchase and how you refinance it. And then, that's fixed up on borrowed funds, right? When you buy the property and finance it. And then that way, when you're put a tenant in 3 months later. You're not having to get cash out of your pocket to put that new HVAC system in.
Yep. That's a really good point. Another way, one thing I've always liked about real estate is that you essentially kind of, if you buy right, say you buy a $200,000 house that you can rent and the return is something on a monthly with your 20% down with the financing, you still have a return. More importantly than the return, you're basically fast forwarding your wealth,
Yes.
$200,000+ that's essentially growing,
Yes.
right? That investment's growing without you having to build $200,000 in the market of your own cash.
Correct.
So I do see how it fast tracks wealth once that property gets paid off at whatever interval you can afford or terms
Yeah.
you can afford. But you basically get $200,000 in the market and via real estate.
Sure.
Where if you just tomorrow if you have $20,000 today, and you put that in the market versus you could take $20,000 and buy a $200,000 property, right?
Correct.
All of a sudden that, yes, you owe on that, but it should be cash flowing if you bought it right, positive,
Yes.
and you will own it.
Yeah. And you're not paying that mortgage.
Yeah, you're just kind of guaranteeing if you do it right, that $20,000 just turned into $200,000 if you just leave it.
Right. Yeah. I'm assuming you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when I finished reading that book, I walked into the room that Wendy was sitting in, and I said, "We will be self-employed someday."
Love it.
Like
Yeah.
I
a great
I
book.
know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
I need to read it again. It's been years. I haven't read it, and I'm trying to remember what year I read it, and then kind of skim through it again.
Sure.
But I need to read it again.
I like to read it kind of towards like December's of every year, and then it
That's a
just
good
kind
idea.
of like motivates you.
Yeah,
You know,
reset.
because you've been getting beat up all year, and you're like, man, why do I like? You know, I often tell Wendy, I see why people go get a paycheck, right? Like it's hard. I mean,
yeah.
you just spend all day getting beat up, or you know, you might. I mean, realistically, you might win 20% of the time when you own your own business. And I know that sounds crazy, and I don't know how you feel, but you know, most of the time
not
you
that
get beat
good.
up, and you know, so you just spend all year getting beat
Yeah.
up. And so I kind of like to, at the end of the year when everybody's kind of resetting and you get some time off, I like to pull that out, and it's kind of a reminder of why I do what I do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I would say it's when I have a good year or a good couple years, I know some bad years are coming, and it happens every time.
Yeah.
And it's especially as you diversify. And but no, I resonate with that. And that's really good advice, everyone. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad every December, or pick just a book that re-inspires you
Yes.
about what you're doing and for a reset. But that's a really good advice. I like that a lot. I'll be doing that. I'm going to do it now, and I'll play catch up.
Yeah.
I'll read
you
it again
should.
now and pretend I read it.
Do
in
you read a
December.
lot?
I'm starting to now.
Yeah.
I'm not a reader. I love audiobooks.
Okay.
That's where I lean into.
Yeah.
But I've got a fiction. I haven't read fiction in forever, but just started reading fiction last year as maybe a healthier thing for my mind than just TV
Sure.
nonstop.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like audiobooks a lot.
you? Yeah.
And I listen to more podcasts probably.
Oh, I
than
love a
anything.
podcast.
So no, it's good. Great advice. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me on. It's
Of
been
course. Yeah. Appreciate you.
fun. Yep.